Alright guys, we're here today. I got my buddy Jim Ed from the Improvement Channel here. We are going to be building a sign, just messing around in the shop. Let's go. So to start the project off, we're going to jump over to the plasma cutter. But while we do that, I wanted to talk to you guys about this 240 volt garage heater from New Air. They sent this guy out for me to check out, tell you about. Let's jump through some of the features. So you'll see there's a big heater coil in the front, fan in the back. This is going to move a lot of air very quickly and heat it up. It circulates in the room really well. I've been using this both to heat me up as I'm working in the shop, but also to heat up the little back room when I'm working in there. Worked beautifully. The heater has the ability to run on a timer to turn on and off at set temperatures, and features a safety tip over switch so it's not going to burn something down if it falls over. It also features a wall mount and a blow down or cool down feature. When you shut it off, it's going to keep running the fan for a while just to make sure those coils cool all the way back down. Nice little safety feature. If you guys are interested in checking out the New Air 240 volt garage heater, go check the link in the description. There's also an offer code down there for $30 off with code 42FAB. Thanks. So, we're supposed to be having a wrench cross a hammer for the logo. And I meant to pull the hammer before the wrench was cut, but I forgot to, so we'll recut it. We got the TWI 321 from True Weld set up for number 10 studs. Boom. You go in, you press down, and you just pull the trigger.
So why is it you don't want to lay it on the table?
Because you want the ground to go right back out the pad of that C-clamp right there. Because if it's on the table, it could arc to the table, and then you get a little blemish on the face of it. So no, you do not have to have a stud welder to do this. You can, of course, use a regular bolt, weld it down to your plate. It works better if you grind any imprints or printing off of the top of it first. Weld that down, a couple tacks around the outside, that works too. But the stud welder is a huge time saver. Total time for us to put all those studs on, including getting the stud welder down, putting it back up, was 7 minutes, 41 seconds. I just checked the video. It's a decision you gotta make for yourself. They're not cheap, but they pay for themselves over time, potentially very quickly if you're busy. You make that call. So we've got the stencil that we cut the other pieces out of, and this is where, you know, spending the money on a little bit of extra metal just shines. We line that up perfectly, and then we can see exactly where each of these go. So the studs themselves are all exactly the same height, which is nice. What we're gonna do is take a paint pen, and get a nice glob of paint on the end of each stud. And then when we put it down in place, it'll leave us a mark on the background. Yep, and paint. This one dries too fast. Good for you guys, you mark. There we go.
Well, that paint pen thing kind of threw off the explanation I was trying to give here, but basically we've used these marks made from the studs to locate where we need to drill a hole in the background, so eventually we can put a fastener in there and connect everything up. This eliminates the need to locate where to put the studs on the back pieces based off holes that were plasma cut in the background or something like that. It's really two ways to skin the same cat. If you check out the video linked here in the cards to my Black Stallion sign, you'll see where we did the exact opposite. I located where the studs needed to go. Again, two ways to do the same thing. After finishing up all the holes, we're going to wire brush everything off one more time just to get rid of any burrs, get it all clean before we move on to assembly.
Okay, so we've got all these number 10 studs. We're going to thread on a coupler nut onto each one. Coupler nut will let us come in from behind with a standard machine screw, but it also acts like a spacer.
So we've got a number 10 screw going through a 1/4 inch hole, which gives us about a 1/16 of an inch of play. Doing a test assembly will let us make sure that everything's lining up exactly as it should, and we can adjust or fix if we need to.
Turned out pretty good.
In our case, everything lined up correctly, but we did note one change we wanted to make, so we're going to do that here before we move on to paint.
Okay, so we want to get a little bit more space on the hammer, so what we're going to do is take off our coupler nut, thread on one regular nut, and then put the coupler nut back again on top. And that'll just stand us off, well, like a skinny eighth.
The priming versus not priming when you're using a Rust-Oleum. Why do you feel like you need to prime it? It's made for paint.
I mean, the paint sticks on better.
It does? I mean, you think it does?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Part of what priming is doing is sealing any oil or crap that's on the metal in the primer, so it doesn't, bleed up through the surface of your paint. For the most part, it's acetone, acetone to me.
Yeah, I just thought maybe you had a cheap place to get it.
No, there isn't.
Stuff's like $27, isn't it?
I want to say that's like 16 or 17 for a gallon.
Either you're wrong or I paid way too much. Maybe I didn't pay that much.
I mean, I can't imagine Texas has some environmental rule we don't. Yet another use for the heater.
Guys, let me know down in the comments what y'all are paying for acetone. Jim, Ed, and I were having a conversation about the prices being different in different places, and I'd never noticed. So let me know what your gallon prices are. We're going to jump through a coat of primer on the face of all of the pieces. We're working up against a time crunch here because we're only in the shop for the afternoon, but we'll get the primer on, set that new air heater on it, and it dries in 15-20 minutes. So we're ready to move on to the next step. But first, I always like to sand my primer layers with these sanding sponges. They're about 500-ish grit. It's a real light sand, but it just knocks off any high spots.
The only thing that's really important with metallic paints is that you come at it from the same direction for the whole coat. If I moved and started doing this, you'd set up a different pattern. You can go around to the other side, 180, but play with the light across there. There's a little dry spot there. Problem now is, we can't touch the background.
Now again, because we're up against a time crunch, meant we had to move into assembly while the paint was still a little bit tacky. That's alright to do, especially if you're in a rush, but what it means is we're going to put each one of the pieces down with the coupler nuts that are attached to the studs pretty much exactly over the holes they're on. We don't want to be dragging them around on the background, putting some gnarly smears or scratches in it. Not too hard to do, just pay attention, especially when you've only got, 5 or 6 pieces like we do here. So we come in from the back with a machine screw. We're just hand threading those in, and then eventually we'll flip the whole thing up and tighten them down with a screwdriver. There's no reason to go crazy on it, but you do want them to be locked in place so that the pieces won't move around on you.
Came out pretty good. Jim Ed's going to clean that paint line up when he gets back. We don't have time to wait for 2 sets of paint. Alright guys, there it is. Came out pretty cool. We kind of played with the colors a little bit. Simple project showing off, the stud welder makes life easier, but you don't have to do it that way. I haven't covered this way of attaching pieces to the background before, and I think that was something worth it in and of itself. Jim Ed, thanks for coming out, man.
Richard, thank you. Really appreciate all this you've given me today, and look forward to a friendship in the future.
Yeah, that's perfect. He's gonna have links here and here. I'm over here with subscribe, Patreon. Until next time, guys, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks.